Hello, I'm Jana, and I wanted to do my review on the book that I read this week, and it's called I Have Lived a Thousand Years, and it is by Livia Bitten Jackson. She is a Holocaust survivor, and she's actually still alive today. So I just wanted to kind of go over why I thought this was a great book. I think it would definitely suit young adult readers, and it would be relevant and appropriate and appealing to pretty much anyone middle school through high school, I would say. I'm middle school English, so I was thinking of it through a middle school mindset, and I definitely think it would be a great book. I was recommended this book by one of my friends. She's read it a few times, and her being Jewish, she has a really good connection to this book. So I thought I would tackle it, and I thought it was great. Um, so I just wanted to point out that what week was it? We were talking about, it was last week. There was a whole thing on Holocaust literature and how that actually is appealing to adolescents because it talks about several different struggles. So it talks about to grow increasingly independent from parents, which is really common with adolescents. In this book, many of the characters had to be independent from their parents because they were just physically separated from them. And the main character, Ellie, she was separated from her father indefinitely, and she didn't get to say goodbye to him, so that was something that was really powerful. Another thing that this book covers is coming to terms with one's body, which was mentioned in the Week 8 Holocaust literature thing. So many of the characters, eventually, once they got to the concentration camps, they had to strip down immediately in front of people. They had no idea who they were, and they had to cut all their hair off, and so they had to just have an extreme violation of their privacy on a regular basis. So that was one thing. Another thing was the relationships with people from both genders. So they were actually separated in the concentration camps, the women from the men, but eventually when they were put together, you could see that there were just the strong bonds when the families got to see the men again, and it was really powerful. And let's see what else is on here. The need to achieve social and economic adult status. So the main character, she was 13, and she had to lie about her age so that she would stay alive, and she had to achieve social adult status almost immediately to stay alive. And then also because she had to stick up for herself against the SS guards and basically be an advocate for her and her mother. And so that was crazy to see, and I think that would be very inspirational. Sorry, my cat. For a teenager to see such maturity and what some people really do have to go through at a young age. So I thought that was really interesting to read about. And then also acquiring self-confidence and a system of values. That definitely was apparent in the novel. She had to be confident enough to devise little plans to keep herself safe and her mom safe. So one of the big storylines in the book was that her mom was getting so ill and feeble that she couldn't even work, and part of the camps is you actually had to perform labor to stay alive. So she would be really confident and get people on her side, other women, to kind of hide her mother. And so I just thought, wow, she really had to not only take care of herself and her mom, but be that next level thinker and really take care of her. So I thought that would be something interesting that teenagers would see as just incredible. And then I thought it was important because it was a female protagonist, so not a lot of times that is the case. I know there's Hunger Games and Divergent and other stories that have female protagonists, but it's impressive because this was from 1997, and the book, and the story was obviously from the 40s, but which makes it even more astonishing that there was a female protagonist, so I thought that would be something that would be appealing to readers. The diversity in the book, well, the gender diversity, I guess, and then it wasn't like just a typical like white American family story, that we're talking about a family from Hungary, and most people that were in Auschwitz, that's one of the concentration camps she was in, they were Czechoslovakian and Hungarian and Polish. There was just a bunch of diversity there, so not a good reason, but it was there. Let's see, I have a couple notes. So I thought it's important through history for us to learn to accept others and to learn the tragic, ugly histories. So I thought that this book was a great depiction of just, I don't know, I can't really put it into words, but just like it was a harsh truth, something that happened that was so horrible. And so I think that this book could actually be taught in English, it could be taught in a social studies class. So I think it's just extremely relevant, and that the information could spill over. So that would be beneficial and kind of a reason that you could tell the students, like, you really should read this because it's not only an amazing story, but it also has some historical relevance, being nonfiction. Let's see what else. I think overall, just seeing the struggle that so many people had to go through, and especially the main character, that it would be appealing for an adolescent to read, because they're usually going through a lot themselves, and like self-identity and just the whole crisis of going through that pubescent stage. So I thought that they could look to this and see that, wow, this person went through so much and they came out on the other side okay. So I think that would be a good lesson for students to read. The reading level is, I didn't write it down, but it was a really easy read. Let's see, I think it was 197 pages or something like that. Nope, 220. And what else is like really exciting about this book? I don't know, it was just a page turner. I read it in like a day, and it made me really want to look up the author and see that she is still alive, and she's spoke around the world several times. And I'm in the Air Force, and she actually went to an Air Force base nearby to speak, so that was pretty interesting. I think, oh yeah, and then we talked about, in week 4, we talked about how some books for the young adult genre get really dark, and like, is it too much? And so I thought, while reading this, like, of course this topic is like gruesome and very awful to read about, but I do think that it was written in a way that it wasn't like gruesome details. It was pretty bad, but it wasn't like the most graphic details. So I think that like kind of watering that part down makes it more readable for a vast majority of ages. So I think that was something that was probably good, how she wrote it. And let's see, I just want to make sure I'm covering everything. I just think overall it was a great book, and I can see how this would entice lots of adolescents to want to read more nonfiction. I know it's not as popular, but when you have a story that really hooks them in and like is very intense and serious, I think it will open their eyes that it is a genre that is interesting and that they can really pull a lot from. So with that being said, I recommend it. I give it a 10 out of 10. I thought it was a really good read, a humbling read nonetheless, but I still liked it. And that is my review of the book.